Hey guys! So I had really hoped to get this video out like a week ago. I'd made some progress on the song. I had like 9 minutes worth of video filmed, and then my phone died. Like, died. Sudden phone death. And I had to get a new one. And I managed to get basically everything back except for the 9 minutes of vlog that I'd already recorded. So now I have to refilm all of it, which I obviously really don't want to do, which naturally sapped my motivation to work on the song for the past week and a half. Okay, so I have like an hour before I have to go to bed that can be used for arcane shenanigans, so I figured I'd just try to get you guys caught up on all of my thoughts and all of my new findings, just so I can get it over with and finally make some progress after this is done. Which is not going to be the easiest task in the world because I've really tried to like record my vlogs as I am having the thoughts, so it feels as organic and comprehensive as possible. In other news, my choir teacher kept referring to the use of light vibrato as shimmer in class today. So yeah, I was definitely completely normal about that. So I put together a big incoherent playlist of songs that I can use as possible inspirations for this one. It doesn't make a lick of sense. Some of it is for sonic inspirations, some of it's for lyrical inspirations, some of it's for both. I'm still trying to figure out which ones I actually need and which ones I don't. It's really hard to convince people this isn't an incestuous relationship when like half of this playlist is mentally ill musical theater love duets. I mean, I have The Proposal from Jane Eyre on here, for heaven's sake. There's like 4 Phantom of the Opera songs. Jinx and Silco actually do feel quite Phantom and Christine coded to me in some ways. Silco like aesthetically kind of feels like the most Phantom coded character ever. That's not like an explicit homage. They've got the whole kindred spirits thing, the possessive undertones, the evil lair. You've also got the fact that in the tea party scene, it's basically the final lair, except Jinx is kind of simultaneously playing the Phantom and Christine. She's the one holding everybody hostage, but she's also the one who's having to make the choice. There's lots of Sweeney Todd on here too, lots of Sondheim in general, because I think he's really good at the like beautiful but unsettling thing I'm going for with this song. I realized last week what a great Jinx and Silco song Not While I'm Around from Sweeney Todd is, and that song is a perfect example because it's this beautiful innocent melody that has these eerie dissonant notes creeping in as the song goes on, which does such a beautiful job of foreshadowing the horrific direction this story is going to take by the end. Maybe one of the best inspirations I've found that's like an actual song that is like accomplishing what I want this song to go for story-wise is Evening Prayers from Carrie. Also a duet about a complex, messed up parent-child relationship, although in my opinion, Silco is, for all his faults, arguably a better parent than Margaret White. But it's a song that's dark and possessive, but also full of so much sincere love and concern and pleading, and it climaxes with this beautiful, passionate counterpoint, and that's really, really kind of the vibe I'm going for with this song, except maybe a bit more musically crunchy. Ultimately, the sound I think I'm going for is a fusion of like the 90s gothic musical theater vibe with like some folk/industrial rock touches. We'll see. The little sort of like autopilot snippet my brain gave me was giving like We Have Sondheim's Passion at Home, but it's also definitely going to change. I tinkered around at the Wanda bass piano a little bit, trying to come up with the melody for like the sort of eerie lullaby-like opening I want, and I kind of liked what I came up with, and then I forgot it, which probably means it wasn't good enough anyway. An epiphany I had about Silco that has fascinated me is that his parenting is problematic in a way you much more frequently see with mothers than with fathers. The codependency, the sort of entwining of identities, the abandonment issues that don't leave me of it all, that's like very intensely maternal. I'm very glad I had this realization because this means I get to put Mama Wolf by Brandi Carlile in the Silco playlist. I find it very, very interesting to compare Silco with Mother Gothel from Tangled, because if you listen to like Mother Knows Best reprise, they use a lot of the same tactics, but the motivations behind them are completely different. Gothel and Silco both tell Jinx and Rapunzel, everyone else is lying, everyone else will leave you, I am your only family, I'm the only one you can trust, which screwed up. Gothel is obviously doing this for purely selfish reasons. Silco, while it is still very wrong to be manipulating Jinx like this, is coming from a much more genuine place. On some level, he really has convinced himself that Vi doesn't have Jinx's best interests at heart, because that's what happened to him. Jinx is the only person he's allowed himself to let in post-Vander. She's his only source of love and companionship. Doesn't make it right, but it makes it human. Also, I want to add, since I was having, like, more Silco insights than Jinx ones at this part, that, like, I think one of my favorite things about Jinx is that at her core, she is such a giver. So now we're gonna get into some of these little lyrical nuggets that I have come up with. So I'm kind of thinking Silco's first verse, after the little lullaby bit, will be something like him describing himself, describing his persona, the, like, shark metaphor thing that I sort of alluded to. I'm still figuring out how that's gonna work. You know, building himself up as this cold, monstrous creature, and then he meets Jinx, and then he's sort of recalling that. And I'm thinking about how he would remember this little girl, and I was looking through my adjectives that I had written down for Jinx. Not adjectives, just images, words, whatever. And I came up with the very tasty alliteration of clawing, clinging creature for how he would describe little Jinx hugging him in episode 3. I came up with this lovely sort of chorus moment. I still don't know how I feel about it. I don't know if it's good enough. Everything I do for us, but most of all for you. You pull me from the tide, then drown me with your eyes and blanket me in blue. You've got the reference to him drowning. You've got the reference to her, like, her blue hair, eyes, etc. Part of me thinks it feels too simple and not screwed up and dark enough. But I mean, maybe like a moment of beauty and simplicity, untainted, will make like a nice respite. I also worried at first that it's a bit too romantic sounding, but I asked some people on that and nobody else thinks it is. I also think this song does need to toe the line a little bit between veering a bit too much into romantic territory, because while I don't think their relationship is sexually incestuous, I do think it's emotionally incestuous. These two are completely isolated. They're literally each other's person in a way that we like very rarely see in fiction outside of romantic relationships. They're so isolated and as a result completely obsessed with each other in a way that is not normal. And while it's not in a sexual way, it still results in some like slightly off-putting overlap in like this person like fulfilling roles in your life that should be filled by other people and other relationships, and it shouldn't all just be in one person. So that's what I mean when I say emotionally incestuous. I'm so crinkly. It's because I'm not getting enough sleep. I'm thinking I want Jinx's verse to start off like playful, but in a way that's like very uncomfortable sounding, and then it gets like more and more like emotionally violent and gets to a place where she's like really beating herself up. And then I want for the bridge when Silco comes in, I want it to be because he wants to soothe her. So some sort of basic lyrics I've got for the bridge: my child, my marvel, you astonish me, you're strong now like you were always meant to be. And then Jinx is like counterpointing with that, like, no I'm not, no I'm not. Obviously it'll be different lyrics. And then a lovely little lyric I've got here, so you guys all probably know, especially if you follow me on Tumblr, my like little fixation with aging and just like how beautiful I think it is. And you can of course see this really, really beautifully in Silco's character design. He like looks a lot older than he's canonically supposed to be because he's had such a hard life. Mina had this beautiful bit in a Rivals fanfic that she wrote. Yes, Rivals, the David Tennant show. She talked about aging like the flecks chipping off of an old oil painting, and I thought that was a metaphor that fits Silco really well. So a lyric I've got for Silco that feeds into the like mortality and fear of, you know, leaving your kid behind thing is: the paint is chipping from my canvas, I know soon I'll leave you alone. And then you've got Jinx in counterpoint saying they'll never leave me alone, like about the voices in her head. Oh god, that's gonna kill me. I think that's my favorite thing I have so far. Or like very passionate counterpointing things like you're all I have, everyone else betrays us, etc, etc. And then I think it's probably gonna build to the shattering shivering girl line that I mentioned in the last video. We'll show them all, now please don't cry, and then it leads into like a very gentle but kind of eerily so final verse. And what rhymes with cry? I'm thinking about cause like die rhymes with cry, and because this song is kind of inspired by the baptism scene, like the obvious like next line is like you need to let powder die. And a problem I ran into with Crowley's Lament was that song, my masterpiece, it's basically incomprehensible to anyone who hasn't seen Good Omens. Like, people who haven't seen the show are gonna be like, why the frick is she talking about the M25? What does that have to do with anything? Whereas, while Crowley's Lament is like my proudest musical achievement because of how complex and genre spanning it is, Even Into Hell I kind of think is my most like technically perfect song because it's specific enough that if you've seen the show, you know it's about Roy and Riza, but it's also just like a nice angsty love song that can be understood even by people who haven't seen Full Metal Alchemist. And I'm kind of towing the line on like where I want this song to fit on like a spectrum between Even Into Hell and Crowley's Lament in terms of how accessible it is. I kind of want it to be more accessible, but I'm not sure. Anyways, if you haven't seen Arcane, because it's such a like weird character name, if I actually say the words like let Powder die, they're gonna be like, well, who the heck is Powder? But if I say let that girl die, they're gonna think he's talking about like a different girl. That's not Jinx. For now, I have the next lyric as slip beneath the waves, let that girl die. I'll like try to make it clear in some way in the rest of the song. We'll see if it works. I found another great fanfic author that I like just as much as the other one that I talked about in the last video, Lullabies on AO3. I found her via her Silco and Mel fic, Mal de Mer, which I am surprisingly obsessed with. Like, that is a rare pair that I'm actually really fond of for reasons I don't want to get into because it's pretty off topic. I just started her super long Jinx and Silco fic, Forward But Never Forget /XOXO. Weird title, I don't quite get it, but the fic is really good. But before I read that, I started with her shorter Jinx and Silco fic called From the Ashes I Rise, and oh my god, she understands them better than just about anyone I've ever seen. She like leans in, she like isn't afraid to lean into the weird and off-putting parts of their relationship in a way that a lot of people who portray their relationship from like a purely sort of wholesome lens don't. And I feel like that element is like really essential in terms of what makes their relationship unique. Her writing is so evocative and sensual and intimate, and she so perfectly captures all of the ways that these two care for each other and take comfort in each other and screw each other up and are just maybe a little bit too close for their own good. It's like the perfect mixture of sweet and yikes, which is exactly what I'm going for. I really want this song to be a little bit like, how do I say this, morbid, which I have done before, re the baby eating lyric in Crowley's Lament. There's this bit in From the Ashes I Rise that I'm freaking obsessed with where Silco is doing Jinx's Jinx is doing Silco's shimmer injection, and they have this ridiculously morbid little nursery rhyme. Cross their hearts, watch them die, stick a needle in my eye. They're so unserious. I'm obsessed. I like how she isn't afraid to get kind of meta with how other people in the story look at their relationship and are like, yeah, this is weird. And Silco's just like, what are you gonna do about it? I love this little bit. I'm obsessed with like their matching raspy voices. It's so like sweet and disturbing at the same time. It's like you think about the implications. It's like, does he let her smoke? Is it just because she has so many meltdowns? Why does she sound like that? I could go on and on and on and on and on about this person's writing. I like could literally just spend hours picking out my favorite bits of Jinx and Silco in her fics, but I need to write my own stuff instead of hyping other people's. It's really annoying that Off to the Races is like the quintessential Lana Del Rey creepy old man song because like, first of all, it's like one of my favorite songs of hers. Second of all, there are some of the like not explicitly sex related parts of it that do fit Jinx and Silco really well, but I'm scared to put it on the playlist because I'm afraid it's gonna make people think I'm a Jilko truther. He loves me with every beat of his cocaine heart. Such a Lana lyric, such a Silco lyric. I do think I'm probably gonna end up putting it on the playlist because, at least like the inspo playlist, because it is such a good example of how to do unsettling in a pop song really, really well. Golden Years by David Bowie, Enjoy the Silence by Depeche Mode, those are both really good Jinx and Silco songs. Save Her Little Soul. I also started getting into Shayfer James because Where We Belong was recommended as a Jinx and Silco song. It really is. It's so good for them. It's also just been like on a loop in my head for the past 2 weeks. Alone where the skies are gray, where we belong. like, Counterfeit Arcade, the album that song is from, the most Silco-coded album I've heard in my entire life. Like, almost every song fits him. I'll also probably start listening to more Ghost. I mean, I literally only know 2 Ghost songs, Mariana Cross and Seriously, but they're both really Jinx and Silco-coded to me. I feel like their whole vibe is something that could work for them really, really well. I hope that covers everything. I guess this will probably be part 2. I'm sorry I didn't have more. I'm sorry it took me so long. Hopefully there will be more actual lyrics and maybe some music in the next installment. We shall see. Farewell. What do you mean